morning, Bardstown and Nelson County. Welcome to Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you. I see the sun peeking out. Margie, I guess it's hopefully we're through with the rain for a while.
Well, it's what's a love-hate thing. We're glad we had the rain, but you're always glad it stops.
Well, I don't mind the rain except what it does to my yard. I have to mow it and mow it and mow it.
That's right.
But
well, it's either that or look at dead grass, Jim. You just can't win. You just can't win in this thing.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was a young teenager, I hated August because you always have a dry spell there, and I was getting paid $5 of mowing for mowing my neighbor's yards, and I went without any income for about 3 weeks every August. So I was always praying for rain.
It's funny how your priorities change, isn't it?
And I wish I had one of those kids at home still to mow. And of course, last night we had the late night thunderstorms rolling through, which weren't really severe, except I had a very close lightning strike at home, and it took out my microwave.
Really?
You hit the button and the light comes on, but nothing happens. So
wow.
Anyway, but of course I was on the computer, and the lightning struck, and I heard a click, something blew in somewhere. But nothing else was dead. So anyway, we may be doing a little appliance shopping this week. And then, of course, we have a dog that's scared of loud noises.
Oh, yeah.
And he spent the night in bed with me.
Again.
But he's learned, when he's really scared, he tries to crawl on top of my head sometimes. But he just kind of snuggled in behind me.
Well, just look at this way. He's protecting your brain.
Yeah, I know, but I can't move. I can't even get out of bed when the dog does that. So anyway, he lived through the night, and he finally got up after I got up. Well, today we have a very special studio guest with us. And Margie, I'll let you make the introduction.
All right. Well, we want to welcome Sheriff Ramon Pineiroa, who's always very gracious to come on when we ask him to come on, but want him to talk about, maybe to start off with the DEA's push to, this is their month to say, bring in the drugs, bring in the medicine, to have people empty out their medicine closets where they've had medicine stored maybe from a previous illness or operation or injury, and to bring that in to be destroyed so that it eliminates the possibility of someone overdosing. And, of course, anything else he wants to talk about.
Okay. Thank you all for having me. It's always a pleasure coming and speaking with you guys in the radio and having the listeners get informed on some of the things that your sheriff's office is doing. So the DEA has made a big push for the expired or non prescriptions that are in your homes to be turned in, so there's no possible theft of those drugs or overdoses from kids, family members, anyone. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have an incinerator, but the Bardstown Police does, and they have a mailbox that you drop those prescriptions there.
So that you could just go to the Bardstown Police Department, and there's a
mailbox there, and you drop them in there, and they will dispose of those. Do not throw them down the toilet and flush them. It creates more damage than anything. But they've created a big push on that. Pills have been an ongoing issue with the opioid epidemic and the opportunity of crime. People break into your homes. Mm-hmm. The first thing that they're going to try to do is go to the medicine cabinet and see what's good for them to take, or take valuables that they can utilize to sell and buy their drug of choice. Mm-hmm. So we're blessed to be a partner with the DEA, having a deputy assigned with them, and we've done for a little bit over a year now. We've done phenomenal things in that past year. with not going to go into details of the cases, but large amounts of drugs being seized, 253 pounds of crystal meth, not particularly aligned with Nelson County, but a lot of the street level drug dealers will go to Louisville, Lexington to get their supplies and bring them back to our community. So putting a dent on those has been phenomenal.
Well, and this was something early on, and when Judge Executive Tim Hutchins took over, and then I don't know if there was any hesitancy, but I think this was something different that you wanted to do, and I think it's obviously it's paying off, not necessarily monetarily, but it's been a great investment in helping stem the flow of drugs, because ultimately they've got to start somewhere before they get down to our level.
And the thing is this, I've said it all along, we're not going to put a stop to it, but we have to try to put a dent on making it harder for them to bring the stuff here. And if we can save lives, whether it's here in Nelson, Jefferson, Bullitt, surrounding counties, by stopping these large amounts of drugs coming into our communities, we're going to try to do that. And like I said, it's been an eye-opener because nobody had ever partnered up with the DEA to do something like this. A lot of relationships that we've built with our federal counterparts, the FBI, Secret Service, DEA, just different agencies that are out there, and being able to talk to them and partnering up and how they do things. Me going to the National Sheriff's Conference and listening to these larger sheriffs that are, 1,000 manpower, you're like, wow, I wish I had 1,000 deputies. But at the end of the day, you listen to what they're doing, and you have to start thinking outside the box how to police.
Right.
The mentality of this is how we used to do it, this is how it's always been done. Kind of, you got to throw that out the window and start fresh. And we've been very successful with it. You mentioned that it might not be monetary, but eventually it does. Where there's drugs coming in, there's money going out. So sometimes you catch those switching of the bags. Now they've gotten smarter where they're not switching the product for the money, but they'll drop the product, and then later on they'll drop the cash off. So it's a lot of intel, detailed, paying attention to how the drug game is evolving, because they're always on the move, and you got to try to stay right behind them and hit them where it hurts.
Well, having your own man on working on these cases, that's got to give you a leg up here in Nelson County too, doesn't it?
It does. What we're seeing now, it's that they're going to the bordering states, to Mexico. They're bringing the fentanyl pills. The pills are a big game, so the DEA has pushed for the prescriptions to be turned over and get rid of. Because they could be switched for these press pills that have fentanyl in them, and we just had a seizure of 15,000 fentanyl pills. Could kill all of Nelson County.
Oh, sure.
So just the little things that are behind the scenes that I see. Eventually we'll be able to do a press release and say, this is what we have done. I don't do it for re-election. I do it because it's the right thing to do. I said it when I was elected that was one of my goals, to create a task force type of thing. I've put 2 guys on the Hardin County task force. We only had one previously.
Right.
I've added the DEA. So starting next month, we will have 6 detectives in the Nelson County Sheriff's Office.
Wow. That's great.
3 in the general and 3 in the drug gangs.
Wow.
Well, I mean, the drugs are a major cause of death in Nelson County.
It is. The overdoses, it's like a roller coaster. It's a hit and miss game. They bring the dope when they can go down to the south and bring those fentanyl, cocaine with fentanyl. They're lacing everything with fentanyl. What we're blessed with is that the cart fentanyl is not being utilized here, and that can kill an elephant. So imagine what it can do to a human being.
Sure.
So with that being said, we're blessed to have the resources that are stopping some of the stuff coming into our community. But it's rewarding when I get the pictures of this is what we did, this is what we did. So,
Well, what's the illegal drug of choice? Now, of course, I see the jail logs all the time, and meth still seems to be the prevalent drug of choice that when someone's arrested on drug charges.
methamphetamine is the largest trafficking drug right now. Like I said, we had a seizure of 253 pounds of crystal meth. I called it the cotton candy because it was pink, yellowish, peach. And so that is the common theme, probably the cheapest drug. But when they're lacing it with fentanyl, it becomes a different entity for the users and for the community.
If I was a drug user, I don't know how you determine what's safe. If you're buying drugs off the street,
Nothing's safe right now. Nothing.
I mean, you could wind up in an overdose situation and never realize.
This is the catch in today's society with the fentanyl. Marijuana, everybody wants it to be legal, but use caution because they're lacing the marijuana with fentanyl. They want to make it a big high that you come back and buy from them.
Right.
And so they're lacing everything, and I'm talking everything, with fentanyl. It's gotten so bad that our guys are using a machine to know what a drug is and what it has on it. So the danger of the fentanyl has become so bad that they've had to purchase this machine that is a $40,000-$50,000 piece of equipment, so the guys don't get hurt. So
from what I understand, and that if you handle fentanyl with your hands, you can absorb it through your skin.
Correct. At your open pores, and it takes it in. Just a small, minute, little bit of fentanyl in the air, you can breathe it in, and you can overdose from it.
Now,
It don't take much.
Fentanyl's an opioid derivative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I kind of wondered about the use of Narcan, because I know that I'd heard stories from first responders that with some overdoses, it can take multiple applications of Narcan to bring somebody out of an overdose.
The catch is this, Jim. You have to allow the Narcan to do its work. You can't put it on somebody's nostrils and expect that it's going to kick in. It takes 3 to 5 minutes for it to actually do its job. But when we're there, we're in the moment. We're like, let's save somebody's life.
Sure.
And that minute might seem like it was 5-6 minutes long. And we get antsy and we'll put another one. It's not going to hurt that individual on doing a secondary.
Right.
But you have to allow that medicine to kick in and do its job and open the nostril, the nasal airways to be able to breathe, because that's what it does. It shuts down your breathing ways, and it becomes, that's why you hear the gargling and whatnot. When families call and they're overdosing, they're not breathing, they're gargling. That's what it's doing. It's shutting down the airways. But now, you can have Narcan at the house. You just gotta know how to use it. Be aware of the
I mean,
instruction.
it's not an injectable.
No, it's a nasal spray.
Right. Okay.
You can get the ones that you inject, but it's a lot easier just to do the nasal and you just got to do the sternal rubs and make sure that they're still with us. Allow it to do his job. Well,
it's certainly a lifesaver and has probably saved many lives here in Nelson County.
It has. We started carrying Narcan. Let's see. I've been the sheriff almost 6 years. Close to 9 years ago. My best friend's kid OD'd, and right after his death, we started putting Narcan in our cruisers. Sheriff Mattingly at the time made the decision, and he's like, this is no brainer, so we started to. We continue to do it. We save so many lives just from having it in our cars, because a lot of the times we're the first ones to arrive.
Sure. And depending on where EMS is coming from, it can take 12, 15 minutes.
And how many, if there's an ambulance available, because now they're making so many runs that they could be at the hospital making a transfer, and they have to leave there to go to that run. So I think that the judge and EMS are making the strive to better for the citizens, having an extra ambulance. I don't know if you heard it last night. They're going to have one to help with runs as well. So we have to evolve and adapt and make the right decisions for our citizens.
Yeah, right there to serve the people. So.
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned before the show that fiscal court last night approved bids on some radio equipment to help improve communications with the sheriff's office, because, well, I think since forever, communication in Nelson County has always been a challenge for first responders, because it's been a challenge for me with a cell phone. I mean, there are just dead spots in the county, and cell phone coverage it's better than it used to be. I mean, there were parts of Nelson County you could count on losing your signal, and it was kind of that way for your guys too, and communications is so critical as a first responder, because if your radio can't get through and you're in a dead spot for a cell phone, you're out there alone, and no way to really make a call for assistance or backup unless you move to a location where you've got a signal.
Back about 12 years ago, I responded to a warrant call. It was in Culver Town, and when I got there, I called on scene. But once I stepped out of my car, I had no communication whatsoever. Luckily, we had a seasoned dispatcher. She kept doing radio status checks on me, and I was not answering. Meanwhile, I'm in a fight with this individual, two other individuals in the house. It got hairy for a little bit, but then Barstown sent some of their officers. Back then, there was only 3 deputies on duty at the time. So one could have been 45 minutes away, and it was just, it got scary for a little bit. But at the end of the day, that started raising the talks about the towers, the radio communications. And we did good. When I took office, we added 3 towers, and the radios seemed to get better. But we have to keep up with the times. Just like a radio station, you have to buy consoles, you have to do this, do that, and update your equipment. And we did that. And now with this push, we're getting all new radios. That we still had the old radios. When a cruiser went out of service, we took that radio and we put it in a brand new cruiser. So for years we did that with old radios.
Right.
So I think that updating the communications will be a benefactor for the deputies, the first responders, and the citizens.
Well, your comments remind me that some of the unsung first responders are dispatchers. and we have had some excellent dispatchers. And when I could listen to the scanner, the dispatchers really are just so important part of the job you guys do. I mean, they're your backup.
They're the initial call takers that know more than we do
Right.
as what's going on the call.
Right.
Nelson County is blessed. We've improved. We've gotten better. But again, in today's society, people are chasing the dollar. They're going to other places that are paying more. We've been lucky that we've had probably I want to say a little bit over a handful of dispatchers that have been with us for a long time. Linda Klosserman just retired with 29 years, I think she had. We've been blessed, but they know more than we do at the initial part of the call. So we couldn't do our jobs without them telling us where to go or whatnot. So.
Well, that's the other half of it, is that they have to deal with the caller too. And so their professionalism shows up there too, because they can help calm
the situation down.
Situation, or assess it in a way that will help give you all more information, or whoever's responding, you, fire, EMS, etc.
And a lot of times they put it in our CAD system, and then today we have computers in our car, we call them MDTs, that we're able to read what the dispatcher's putting in the actual call.
Right.
If they're busy, we're able to put ourselves en route to that call. So there's a lot of technology and things that we can help each other with.
So nobody gets hung out there without anybody to hear them.
Correct. And that's been, when I first started, we didn't have the computers in our cars.
Yeah.
It was go up when the radio called, and that was it. So.
All right. Well, Sheriff, we need to take a commercial break. You're listening to Bradford and Brooks, and with our special guest, Nelson County Sheriff Ramon Pineiroa. And we'll be back in just a few minutes after these messages, so please stay tuned. All right, welcome back to Bradford and Brooks, Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford, and our very special studio guest, Nelson County Sheriff Ramon Pineiroa. And we've been sharing war stories about stolen cars, especially my old 1971 Volkswagen Type 3 Fastback that disappeared from in front of my house, or my parents' house, on South Center Street. And oddly enough, it's because I left the keys in the ignition. And, of course, this is 1978, 79, and if we parked our car, my Volkswagen leaked oil like most Volkswagens, and my father wouldn't let me park it in our driveway. So I had to leak oil on the city street instead. And anyway, it was routine. I'd leave the keys either in the seat or sometimes in the ignition, never thinking, well, who would want to steal a Volkswagen? I put it up for sale because I wanted to buy, of all things, a 55 Chevy. And so I was going to sell the Volkswagen and buy the Chevy. Well, the for sale sign in the window attracted some attention because about 6:05 one morning, my neighbor heard somebody get in and started up and drive away. They did a couple of donuts in the neighbor's yards, tore up some flyers, and then drove it out Boston Road, and they stripped it. Well, I had some fancy wheels and tires on it, of course, so they took those. And then they proceeded to break every window out of it, except one wing vent. So anyway, that was the end of my Volkswagen because we only had $500 in the car, and it would have cost way more than that to replace all that glass. So anyway, enough war stories, Raymond. I'll tell you what was interesting. The day after my car was stolen, and there were a lot of us on the Center Street that parked on the street. Nobody ever parked in front of their houses again. After that, everybody pulled around into the driveway. Anyway, unless their car leaked oil and their daddy made them
put it in the street.
Yeah. Anyway, times have changed, and the sheriff's office has there's lots of new tools to fight even people stealing cars or even just breaking in them now. We were talking about the and people still don't necessarily know what these are, but you'll see a singular post on the side of the road with a square. It's basically a solar panel, and these are called flock cameras, and they're a fascinating tool for fighting crime, especially with vehicles.
So I'm sure that I'll get a few nasty grams about the flock cameras. They're illegal. They're not. You have no expectation of privacy on a public roadway.
No.
State, county, or city.
Right.
So with that being said, we purchased the contract on the flock cameras, and they've been a great asset for Nelson County. Even if you're a citizen passing through or a victim that your vehicle may come to our county, we will definitely attempt to recover it. As soon as it hits that camera and it reports that it's stolen, deputies from the Nelson County Sheriff's Office will be on our way to attempt to recover it. We've been pretty successful. We've recovered about 25 vehicles.
That's awesome.
In almost 2 years. So.
And I also understand you can use it, for example, we've had in the past a rash of car break-ins. And so, if you can track track vehicles, suspect vehicles.
Correct.
When they come in and when they leave.
We had a ring of juveniles and adults that came into Nelson County right when we had the flock cameras. And they were hitting Maywood, Corman's Crossing, everywhere. They came in a whole week and just raised havoc here. I'll brag on our staff, our detectives. They kick butt. They identified about 7 or 8. We had a multi-jurisdiction meeting with Mount Washington, the Bardstown Police, E-Town, Bullitt County Sheriff's Office. A lot of agencies were involved in this meeting because they were working the same case that we were.
Right.
They were hitting town after town after town after town. One particular early morning evening, they went to 150 Quick Stop. And they were pumping gas, trying credit cards, because of course they had already hit several cars, taking their valuables, and they were hitting the gas station. Let me pump gas on this card. Let me go inside and buy this. And they were just trying credit cards right there at the register. So our guys worked their tails off, identified 1, 2, 3, and the trickle down effect. They were always masked up. Of course, COVID created that monster.
Sure.
And gloves and everything. Well, this kid was a white kid hanging around with African-American kids, and he had a tattoo in his hand. Well, he decided to take that glove off.
Wow.
And the trickle down on the social media effect created knowing who these individuals were. So I'm bragging on my staff for taking the time. We've created a lot of changes at the office by if you are a victim of a crime, a deputy will do the initial report, but a detective will, if he cannot solve the case, a detective will look into it and do those things. So we're trying to expand, do better things for the community. And at the end of the day, I have some of the best of the best, and they're put in the right spots for those reasons. I have a detective who is a computer guru. He likes to dig into the social media. He's awesome. And then the expansion, having a third detective in the office is going to be phenomenal for the community because they will have an extra set of hands and eyes on cases. So, but the flock cameras, they've been great. Just for that, the other detective, he likes the computer crimes and stuff like that. He's working on a case that we'll probably do a press release here shortly, but their Secret Service is involved, counterfeit money, and they're just slewing money everywhere all over the Commonwealth. Again, this is another multi-jurisdiction case, and again, I have to brag on them because this would not be done if they didn't take the time to actually, and yes, do their job.
Right.
But they're there all the time working, busting their butts, putting the time into it, solving the case, because it may not be a crime that they stole something from you, but they did because they paid with fake money. So they're taking a business, they're taking their items without paying for it.
Right.
And so I'm tickled to death. I'm excited and know that technology is evolving, and we're going to try something until, if we don't like it, we don't have to continue the contract, but we'll try something until we get it right.
Yeah, I think it was on social media. I saw that Judge Hutchins swore in a new deputy.
Aaron Amshoff.
I recognize his name from the jail logs as the arresting officer and I know he was with Fish and Wildlife.
Fish and Wildlife. He was a warden, but he was a very active warden.
Sure.
They are the police.
Yeah,
and so
sure.
he liked to police, and so he's from Nelson County. A lot of kids that I've hired are from here, and we're trying to create that home environment.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm sure
They're more likely to stay if they're from
Correct.
Nelson
Yeah,
County
correct.
than to leave and go to another
Correct.
job.
Well, I'd say with his experience, he brings some good experience, and plus he's working at home again. Of course, I don't know what areas he may have covered, for Fish and Wildlife, but if he's serious about law enforcement, then he's made a really good move.
I think so. I think we made a really good move, bringing a homegrown kid back to
Absolutely.
his hometown.
Absolutely.
Mine is here, but he works in Hardin County. They're allowing him to work a night or so in Nelson, so it's kind of good to have him in the community. That they thought that I was doing all this work, and it was my son being proactive out here. So, but it's one of those proud moments that most of these kids I used to coach when I was coaching Little League or
Right.
high school football, and they come to me and they're like, I want to be the police. I'm like, well, yeah, come on. And you kind of take them serious, but you don't until they're actually in the shoes and doing the job.
Yeah.
I think I have 3, maybe 4 right now that I coach, and I'm like, revolving door.
And you're still coaching.
A little bit. Sometimes they coach me.
Well, that's as it should be.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes that's. Well, anyway, we were back about the flock cameras. I was telling you during the break that I saw a social media ad about flock cameras, and to me it was directed to homeowners associations, and it was promoting the flock cameras as a way of combating crime in your neighborhood. Because that, you've got a record of every vehicle that comes in and out. And that's a great tool for law enforcement to use if there's an incident involving a vehicle.
Right. A lot of homeowners associations are going through those because of those reasons, and it's an inexpensive tool. Each camera, I think now it's $3,500. Of course, price increase as fluctuation happens in the country.
Right. Right.
But it's a tool that is going to be beneficial for every single resident that lives in that neighborhood. A lot of people call about a crime watch or neighborhood watch. That is perfect. I call that a 24/7 police officer on duty because we're able to go back and utilize that when a crime happens. Are we sitting there watching what it does? No. We don't have the time for
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
We use it as a tool to be able to solve crimes, just like that counterfeit money or that ring of break-ins that happened a year ago. So those are the things that we're using it for. I don't care where you're going, where you're coming from, unless you're doing illegal activity.
Right.
Stealing cars, trafficking drugs, things like that, then I care.
Raymond, talk to us a little bit about the traffic situation. It's summertime. We've got a lot of tourists, and I think that we've had some traffic accidents, and maybe talk about the issues you all face there.
We've had a few accidents, especially Louisville Road 245. We had a fatality where a young individual was walking on the road and was struck. And those are the sad days. Just be smart. If you are going to be walking, walk on the opposite side on oncoming traffic so they can see you. Wear bright colors or road guard vest or something that's going to be reflective. Things like that that create a preventative measure so the driver can see you. This evening was dark and apparently was wearing dark clothing, and the driver couldn't see him. It was a sad situation. The other is leave 10 minutes early if you're in a hurry. I tell the guy, slow down. You're not going to get there faster. And I say it because it was said to me when I was a young deputy, first starting my law enforcement career. I wanted to be the first one there. I wanted to get there fast. And really, if you're doing 100 miles an hour, you're not going to get there about a minute faster. Just be cautious. Get up a little bit early. If you're running late, you're late. There's nothing you can do. You're late. If you're doing 75 miles an hour on a 55, you're not going to gain that lateness back. Yeah. And be cautious of your other surroundings, your drivers, your motorcyclists, your bicyclists, your pedestrians. Just pay attention. It's a sad situation, not only for that family, first responders that go out there and see a person laying on the road, and then we have to get other first responders to come and reconstruct an accident because we want to get it right. If the individual that hit somebody was DUI or been drinking, they should be charged. But we also want to get it right and not charge somebody that it wasn't their fault.
It's clearly an accident.
No, correct. So
I will tell you that I have had in my driving career I call them near misses. Somebody walking on the road at night, and it's like you don't see them, not wearing bright clothing, till you're right up on them. Yeah. And just by the grace of God, I hadn't drifted over by the edge of the road, and missed them. But it scared the bejesus out of me because it's, you never, it's almost like, the same thing happens on the parkway with deer. Of course, they're not wearing reflective gear, right. But I was on Interstate 64 late one night, and there was a buck. I don't know how many points. He went by too fast. He was standing on the line in the center of the road, and I probably could have reached out and petted him as I went by, but I was doing 70. I was trying to get home. And just, again, by the grace of God, I barely missed him. And, of course, anytime you hit him, and that was an old Plymouth, about 4,000 pounds, and hitting a fully grown buck, it would not have been pretty. And I think I might have been wearing a seatbelt. This was back in the day when seatbelts
weren't a thing.
Loose. No, they weren't a thing. Who wears a seatbelt?
And no airbags.
Yeah, and I was the only airbag in there. But just briefly on seatbelts, I think we need to thank our school system because I got more reminders from my kids when they were young. Daddy, you need to buckle up. You need to buckle up. And finally, I listened. I got tired of being, the complaints, but the school system really drove that into our kids, safety first. So, so to all the teachers who reminded all their kids to buckle up, it helped. That message got to parents too.
And I think you're right because my kids are always buckle up. Don't you hear that thing, ding? Yeah. So.
You mean somebody has to remind you?
Unfortunately. You get busy. We're all human beings. But yes, they have to remind me sometimes. But I've done a lot better than I used to. So when that little ding reminds her, you put your belt on and it quits, and it's kind of like the nagging stops.
Well, I this summer I've had the misfortune to see an accident happen right in front of me, right in front of our car. And we were not involved at all or not, but my son-in-law got out of the car to go over to check on the people. And the man had a seatbelt on, and his airbag went off. His companion did not have a seatbelt on and did not have the airbag did not go off but the way it hit. And she was in such terrible shape. When he came back to the car, he was weeping because it had rots of the. He stayed until the ambulance got there and the people got there, but she was so terribly injured that it really affected him. And that just shows you the difference. I mean, the man was talking and injured, but not by much. And we don't know if this lady lived or not.
Just to touch up on it, we're blessed that a lot of people stop and check on these individuals that are in that vulnerability of an accident, because a lot of people would just keep going. They don't want to see that.
Oh, no. This was like a four-way intersection. And so there were people who had stopped on both sides.
Yeah, we're blessed. When I first moved to Nelson County and was married to my wife first 6 months, everybody would wave at you. And I said, "Who's that?" And she's like, "Oh, everybody waves." And so about 3 months later, I was the one doing all the waving as well. So, and it's just the culture, what we're used to seeing. And if you stop, your kids will stop when they're grown.
Right. Yes.
All right. Raymond, we got about 4 minutes left. Any reminders that you want to give to our WBRT listeners about staying safe this summer?
Stay hydrated. I've been drinking a lot of water. I'll be riding a bike. I leave tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they started today. They started in Alexandria, and they were going to Warsaw today, about 65 miles. Tomorrow will be about 109.
So you're riding
a bicycle, not electrical, nothing. This is all human pedal power.
And starting from where?
They started today in Alexandria, Kentucky, up in northern Kentucky.
Okay.
And then we're going to travel northern to Covington. Warsaw today, Warsaw to Covington. And then they're going to start coming back southwest. And then they're going to go through Eminence, Louisville, Shepherdsville. So if you're free on Friday morning, we will be coming through 245 North 3rd to the sheriff's office. If you want to cheer us on and whatnot.
Who is us?
The Kentucky Brotherhood Ride.
Okay.
We're a bunch of first responders. We have some EMS and the former Nelson County Fire Chief, J.T. Bass. He used to coach football with me, and he heard the stories about me riding to D.C., and he wanted to do something like this here in Kentucky. And so we got together and we created the Brotherhood Ride. There's only 6 Brotherhood Rides in the whole United States.
All right. Are you going the whole route, or are you just doing your
I'm meeting them tomorrow, Anchorage. And that's where I'll meet them.
Oh, you're going to have a pretty good ride, too.
But I'm going to have a decent little ride. Yeah. So I'm going to ride tomorrow from Anchorage to Shepherdsville. Friday, we'll get up at 7 and ride to Bardstown. We'll come down 3rd Street roughly about 7:45, 8 o'clock, maybe, give or take, depending how much wind sucking I'm doing and holding them back. I've been riding. I've been doing a couple of rides. I did a 2 30-mile rides and a 20
on a bicycle.
Trying to get used to this heat, but overall, what we do is we honor first responders that were killed in the line of duty, and let the families know that they're never forgotten.
Right.
And that is what we're doing. Of course, being one of the founding fathers of the Kentucky Brotherhood Ride, we have stopped here before, and we're going to stop here again. So,
All right. Well, we are out of time, Raymond. We'll look for you on Friday morning.
Friday morning, 7:30, 7:45, 8:15, we'll come through 3rd Street around the courthouse.
All right. Sounds great.
I'll be waving at you from my home.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you, Sheriff, and thank you for listening to Bradford and Brooks. We'll be back next week. Margie and I will be back, and we'll have another guest and another topic. Until then, have a great week, everybody.